We have grown multiple channels to over 100,000 subscribers, making millions and millions of dollars on the platform. We've in total generated over $30 million for our clients. And it actually really comes down to,
So there's the idea, the title, and the thumbnail.
yeah,
Why is it that these three things outweigh everything else when it comes to at least what you're giving priority to?
the idea itself is a way to frame that content. And this is where 99% of people mess up when they're actually creating their content and their ideas. Is they simply, I would recommend if you're trying to build a serious brand, the number one place to spend money is in any good story, in any good movie. You essentially want to have, I'm getting a little bit in depth, but this is going to be an in-depth video.
Let's do it.
So
Welcome to this special edition of Delusion by Design Extra, where I've just sat down with Linden to dig into his story and hear about how he's become one of the biggest names in YouTube consulting for people with info products. And for this one specifically, we're going to be deep diving into all things YouTube and extracting all the sauce we can from someone who has spent years of his life learning how to actually grow and become profitable on the platform. So first things first, why should people listen to Linden Chasteen when it comes to YouTube?
For sure. I mean, so the thing is now we have grown multiple channels, for now actually to over 100,000 subscribers. We have worked with some of the biggest names in the info space, growing YouTube channels, making millions and millions of dollars on the platform. We've in total generated over $30 million on the platform, for our clients. And in the last year, we also grew my personal channel from 0 all the way to 60,000 subscribers. With no external views, no ads, nothing, just purely organic long form. And yeah, I've just been doing YouTube for a long time.
Amazing, man. Yeah, and we'll break this down into, general YouTube gems. We'll go into specifics of different roles that exist within the space itself, and then also info products. So if you're looking for something specific, look at the timestamps. Everything is going to be kind of broken into the different sections. But I guess to really kick us off, like, what would you say YouTube has going for it that other platforms don't?
Good question. So the difference between platforms like YouTube, Instagram, Twitter is simply the length of the amount of time that someone spends with you. So Google essentially did a study where they looked at over 1 billion data points, and they figured out how long does someone on average have to spend with somebody before they buy their product. And they found that the average amount of time was 7 hours before they could make a full, educated, easy purchase decision. And with that, YouTube is the fastest way to get to that 7-hour point, because think about it. On Instagram, how long do you have? 60 seconds. On Twitter, how long do you have? Okay, if you write a thread, maybe 5 minutes, but realistically, not much time at all. On TikTok, 60 seconds, maybe 3 minutes if you're doing like super long content, but mostly 60 seconds. Think about LinkedIn, a minute, maybe 2 minutes. Think about email, a minute, 2 minutes. No other platform besides YouTube has really long run times. The only exception is Netflix, but for majority of people here, it's going to be pretty hard to get on Netflix. So YouTube, essentially, you can make a video that's 7 hours long that somebody can watch in one sitting. That is huge. That creates way more trust than any other platform. And typically what we see is that buyers on YouTube are so much more bought in than on the other platforms. They have trust because they've spent hours and hours consuming your content. They know you, they know exactly what you sell, and they know exactly like what results you have gotten for other people. So YouTube is by far the best platform if you are an entrepreneur.
Beautiful. And let's dive into each of these in excruciating detail, but overview level. I've heard you speak about the 3 core things that YouTube essentially like requires you to be good at for you to be able to grow. So there's the idea, the title, and the thumbnail.
Yeah.
Why is it that these 3 things outweigh everything else when it comes to at least what you're giving priority to?
100%. So it actually really comes down to the messaging. Like it really comes down to the messaging. So with your idea, title, and thumbnail, the number one reason is that you need to get the click, right? It doesn't matter how valuable your video is. You could have the best training on the internet. You could have the most valuable video in the world. But if nobody clicks on that video, then simply it's not going to get any reach, right? And the idea, the title, and the thumbnail are essentially what gets that person to click and what gets them past that first 30 seconds where you're just introducing the video. That's what gets them into the actual value section where you really, really prove yourself. So the 80-20 is the idea, title, and thumbnail, because it essentially, if you don't have that dialed in, your video can never do good. So you need to make sure that that is perfect. And it's the same thing as like having like a headline on an ad. Like 80% of your advertising budget is just spent on your headline. And it's the same thing with YouTube with titles and thumbnails.
And, to start dissecting them each, idea. So when you say it's about the idea of a video, what does the final product of an idea look like? Is it a concept that you're looking to do? Is it a topic that you're looking to speak about? Is it an angle within a topic that you want to touch on?
Yeah. So typically with ideas, it is more of an angle. So an idea itself isn't actually the thing that you're going to talk about in the video. That's classified as your content. The idea itself is a way to frame that content. And so typically ideas with more broad packaging, which means like a broader title, a broader thumbnail, and a broader angle are way better because they reach such a bigger total addressable market, or they reach a bigger audience size. So yeah, ideas are purely concepts or angles, sorry.
And how do you approach generating ideas in the first place?
100%. So how we approach ideas is we essentially look at what are called outlier concepts on YouTube. So an outlier concept is a video that we see that has gotten a ton of views, but it's on a channel that doesn't have a lot of subscribers. So let's say that a channel has 1,000 subscribers and every single video they post maybe gets 300 views, 400 views, 500 views. Then they post one video and that one video gets 500,000 views. That video is likely going to perform extremely well if you recreate it, but not recreating it in your niche. And this is where 99% of people mess up when they're actually creating their content and their ideas, is they simply find these outlier videos in their own niche. They find these videos that have performed very, very well. And they're like, oh, wow, this guy crushed it in my niche, right? I'm just going to copy him and take all his views, right? That's not how it works. That guy's already made that idea. So what you actually want to do is you want to essentially use a process called base desire theory. And I'm getting a little bit in-depth, but this is going to be an in-depth video.
Let's do it.
So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to look at your niche as a whole. Let's say you sell dropshipping. Let's say you sell SMMA. Let's say you sell Facebook ads, whatever it may be. You want to look at the base desire of that niche. The base desire of all of those niches, and for majority of people watching this, is going to be making money, right? Then you're going to want to extract that desire. So you have the desire of making money. And then what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to look at other similar niches that share that same desire. So let's say that dropshipping, right? Let's use that as an example. We can essentially detach that making money. Then we look at other niches that have make money. That could be business. That could be SMMA. That could be Amazon FBA. All of these different little niches, they'll have ideas in there that can essentially be transferred back to your niche that have no competition because no one's made them yet. So what you want to do when you're doing ideas and you're looking for angles for videos, what you're going to want to do is essentially find that base desire, find a parallel niche. It's what we call parallel niches. Do extensive research on that parallel niche, looking for videos that are outlier videos, have a lot of views, low subs. Once you find one in a parallel niche, you bring that back to your niche and you essentially recreate it. So a video that I did that went really viral recently was essentially a concept that I got from an entrepreneur named Jeremy Haynes. He made a video that was titled "Webinars are on easy mode for business owners." I simply changed that and I took that concept, I took it back to my niche, and I essentially just said, YouTube is on easy mode for new channels. And that video got 60,000 views in like a month, right? The reason why that happened is because I essentially took that proven concept that shares the same desire as my audience has, and I transferred it into a niche where it has never been done before. So it's essentially a proven idea. I replicated the title, the thumbnail, and took that packaging, brought it back, and essentially had a proven concept, proven title, proven thumbnail in a space where it had never been done before. So I already knew for a fact that that video was going to work for my audience because no one else had done it yet. And that is how you ideate.
Very nice. And what would you say separates a bad idea from a good idea?
One that follows the value equation. So everyone here should know Alex Hormozi's value equation, right? It's dream outcome, time. I don't know the actual multiplication, but it's dream outcome. You try to raise the dream outcome, and then you have the effort. You try to lower the effort. You try to lower the speed, and then you try to raise the perceived likelihood of achievement, right? That applies perfectly to YouTube titles. So what's a good filter that you can run your ideas through is essentially comparing them to that value equation. For one, does your idea have the dream outcome in it? Every single title should have a dream outcome. You look at any of our best performing titles, it's how to get 1,000 subscribers. It's how to blow up on YouTube. That's a dream outcome. And then you want to include at least one or two of those other pieces of the value equation. So for example, one that we could do is how to get 1,000 subscribers fast. That's a time delay. So we're basically reducing the time to the dream outcome. That is a very, very good way to essentially do our titles. And that video, I think, is almost at 1 million views now on our channel, that exact video with that exact title. And so you can do that in any space, but you start with an outlier concept and then run it through that filter at the end. And you can even make that outlier concept even more effective once you kind of get the hang of it by just adding more of the value equation on top of it. That's a really good way to know if you've come up with a good idea.
Beautiful. And in terms of actually taking the idea, the concept, I want to make a video about X and turning that into not necessarily a script per se, but a general structure of what you're going to follow, how long you're going to make the video, the different points you're going to touch on. What does that process kind of look like for you?
Like how to actually structure a video?
Yeah, based on the idea that you have.
Yeah, so after that point, you want to always start off with the packaging. Always start off with the title and thumbnail. After you have that, at that point, you just want to talk about whatever you want to talk about, as long as it fits somewhat into that like framework. Like for example, you could have a video where it's titled how to get ahead or like how to make more money than 99% of people. Literally any single topic in Make Money Online can fit into that packaging. You could talk about Facebook ads. You could talk about TikTok ads. You could talk about offers. You could talk about literally anything under the sun. That's typically how you should do your ideation. You shouldn't start with like the content first and then try to build a package around that. You should start with the packaging and then essentially hide all of the actual content into something that's sexy that people want to buy.
Well put. And then in terms of actually scripting itself, right? So you just mentioned like the general flow is what you want it to look like. But in terms of actually getting the words down on paper from the idea itself, what would you recommend, or what is your own process to go from, again, concept to structure to actual words on paper?
Yeah. So there's essentially a concept in traditional film called the 3-act structure. So in any good story, in any good movie and TV shows as well, you essentially want to have, in every single episode, in every single movie, you want to have act 1, act 2, and act 3. Act 1 is simply introducing the concept. That's introducing that. What are the stakes? What is the current like situation going on there? And then in act 2 is when you really want to take people on that journey. You want to take people through the meat of it, show them exactly what they need to do, show them the problems, show them solutions, go through the trials. And then in act 3, you want to climax it by taking them to that outcome. So it goes like introduction, trials and tribulations, outcome. That's how you should really structure your content. So how I like to do that is essentially dividing my video into 3 acts. And I can give you my scripting template if you want to send that off. Is 3 acts, and then I have what are called payoffs within those acts. So each act has 3 payoffs. So there's 9 payoffs in total because there's 3 acts, 3 payoffs in each, 9 payoffs total. So what I'll do is I'll map out what each act is about. So act 1 could be like introducing, like, for example, I made a video about how to get like 1,000 subscribers, right? I could be like, act 1 could be like how to set up your channel. And then in each of those payoffs in act 1, I would also put a subtopic. So I would talk about how to set up your profile picture, how to set up your banner, how to write your description, right? That would be a full first act. And then what I do is I actually include, and we're getting complicated here, but after each of those payoffs, I include what is called an open loop. So an open loop is a copywriting concept, I think coined by Alan Soltanic. And it's essentially raising a question in the viewer's mind. It's essentially a rehook. So you're essentially raising a question in the viewer's mind and then answering that in the next payoff, right? So it goes question, answer, question, answer, question, answer. And so a good example of that would be, let's say I have the banner and then I go on to the profile picture, right? So an open loop that I could say is, now that you have a good banner, you need to understand how to make a perfect profile picture. So now the viewer is wondering, they have the question, okay, how do I make a perfect profile picture? And there's a lot of different copywriting concepts you can use to make it more sexy than that, but that the base principle, that's how it works. So in total, to recap, you have 3 acts, 3 payoffs in each act, and then 3 open loops connecting all the payoffs. So in total, you have 9 open loops, 9 payoffs, and 3 acts.
And that's a document you have that you said?
I do, yeah.
Is that a free resource you're willing to give out?
Of course.
Okay, so we'll leave that linked in the description as well, so you can go check that out. I mean, again, since we have so much, let's just rattle through. So we're talking titles. I mean, before anything, what makes a good title?
So a good title is going to be kind of like what I said. It's going to have that dream outcome. Or it's going to have the dream outcome and it's going to follow that value equation. So what you can do, start with the dream outcome, add 1 or 2 pieces of the value equation, how to make $1 million fast, how to make $1 million, lower the perceived effort, working 4 hours a day, how to make $1 million guaranteed, how to make $1 million from an iPhone, how to make $1 million in 30 days, in 1 hour, in 10 minutes. Those are all ways to increase the effectiveness of titles.
Do you ever look at character counts, specific words, keywords within titles? Like, are there all these extra variables that you consider, or do you try to just dumb it down to the simplest possible thing?
Good question. So you should keep your titles under 60 characters. Some people like to do 50, but I think that's a little bit short. I like 60. Even if it cuts off slightly, that's fine. So keep it under 60 characters. You don't want like a whole sentence as your title. Nobody's going to click on that. As far as other stuff in the title, it really goes down to like capital letters. So there's a lot of different styles. It's really just personal preference. You could do all lowercase if you want it to be more of like an authentic feel. You could do all uppercase if you just want it to scream right at the viewer. You could do a mix. There's something that I like to do called title balancing, where you like to think of the capital letters on your title like a scale. So let's say that you have let's say that the first word in your title is best. Let's say it's like best ways to make money in 2025. The first word being best, if you capitalize that and all the other letters are lowercase, then the title is going to feel a little bit heavy on this side. But actually, because you have the 2025 on this side, which is technically also capitalized because it's a number, then it kind of levels out. But for example, let's say I didn't capitalize best on that title and I just had best like ways to make money in 2025, it'd actually be leaning a little bit this way because the 2025 is capitalized, but the best is not. So you want to always try to balance your title, whether that be one set of capitals on this side, one set of capitals in the middle, one set of capitals on this side, or maybe it's kind of 2/3 of the way through. You always want to just balance the title just to make it look aesthetically pleasing.
And do you like using one-off capital words within this? So it's like the best or the one thing, right? To emphasize the thing itself. Do you not back that? What are your thoughts around that in general?
100%. Yeah, I definitely would recommend it as long as it's balanced. That's really it. As long as it's balanced. Fortunately, if you're in the business space, you can use money to balance it out a lot. It's like, for example, like the one strategy that will make you 10,000 a month in 2025 is perfectly balanced, because if you capitalize one, you have 10,000, which is capitalized in the middle, and then 2025 at the end, perfect balance. You look at Iman's titles, you look at Hormozi's titles, all of them follow this structure.
And what about brackets? Brackets, I've seen you suggest something like step-by-step guide or full course. What are your thoughts on having title and then parentheses at the end?
It's simply a way to, again, extend that value equation. So for example, step by step makes it seem simpler, makes it seem like less effort because you're taking them through it step by step. So it just comes back to that value equation. If you want to use brackets, you can. You don't have to, though.
And what about the actual play? So we'll speak about thumbnail specifically,
Mhm.
but the way that a title plays off the thumbnail, right? And either repeating words or complementing the information, how do you like to approach that combination? Or do you like to look at them both as individual elements? Like, how do you like to see the dance between the two of them, if that makes sense?
They can definitely add to each other. The thumbnail, though, is definitely more curiosity based. So the title should really be value, and then the thumbnail should hook the viewer's attention and create curiosity. So, for example, there was a video titled How He Made $1 Million with This Dumb Product. And the thumbnail is essentially a pink background with a steel bar of soap in the middle. Now, that thumbnail is extremely bright. It's gray and pink, which is like a really weird color combination. I think that video has over 1 million views because it's just so different than what's out there and it hooks the attention. People are like, what is that? Like, people have never seen steel soap before. So they're like, what is that? And then it's confirmed by the title how this dumb product made 1 million. And it's like, creates so much curiosity because this dumb product made 1 million. Okay, how did he make $1 million with a dumb product? And then they see the product, they're like, I don't even know what that thing is. And so they'll click on it. So it's, the dance can work together, but it's mostly a dance of curiosity.
Got you. And I've heard you describe yourself as one of the best title writers in the world. I mean, firstly, at what point can someone actually be considered a good title writer?
Good question. I think it's after you stop copying titles from other people. I think that's the point where like if you can write titles like just off the top of your head that perform well, that's, I'd say, when you're like a really good title writer, when you know the base principles of like the value equation, when you know all the popular concepts that are working right now. Like, I'm on YouTube all the time, so I get all this data from like, oh, this outlier is working right now. Oh, this title framework is working right now. Let me take that, I put it in my memory, and I can pull it out whenever.
How would you say you got good, and how could someone nowadays get good at writing titles?
Volume. Like, I literally used to come up with 100 ideas every single day. Like, it was probably 1 to 2 hours of just pure ideation every single day for like a year. It was a lot. And through that repetition, I just became so good because, and I'm not the best in the world at it, by the way. I'm good, but there's some people who are better at it than I am. Like, I'm sure Mr. Beast's team probably outclasses me. But I've gotten to the point where I can just come up with a title and know that it's going to get views, right? And the way that I did that was just through pure repetition. The best way to do ideation is if you can spend an hour a day on ideation every single day, that's the highest leverage thing that you can do to grow your YouTube channel. Most people are not going to put in that effort. And if you do, you're going to stand out through everyone else because you have way more ideas than anybody else. For example, Mr. Beast pays people 6 figures just to come up with ideas for the entire day, every single day. He has ideation teams where they literally just go come up with hundreds of thousands of ideas, pick the best ones, present it to him in a boardroom, and he'll check off on some. It goes through multiple levels of checkoffs, multiple people before it ever reaches him. And that's why he's so successful, because he comes up with more ideas than every other person. There's other YouTubers who do it where they essentially have it set up to where they crowdsource ideas. So they basically open it up to the public, and every time that they use an idea that somebody came up with, they'll pay that person $1,000, $2,000. And there's people making good money with that.
Sure. And, transition to thumbnails. What makes a good thumbnail?
Okay, so this is going to be completely different. So there's a couple things that really matter with your thumbnails. For one, if you're a business owner, messaging matters a ton. Think about what payment processor do your clients use? Most of them will use Stripe. Some people use Fanbasis. But for example, we had like a client who was like a therapist, right? And she basically taught other therapists how to make more money. There's a certain portal that therapists use to collect cash. So we had to, example, use that portal in the thumbnail to have our messaging be clear. So for one, you're going to want to think about what is your messaging? What are the typical colors that actually are used in your industry? For example, with therapy, it's like more like dark, earthy greens, right? And maybe white. That's like a very good kind of mix. So think about your messaging first. What do your viewers respond to? What do they know? For example, in the entrepreneur space, it's like ClickFunnels awards. If you have a ClickFunnels award in your background in a thumbnail, this is something William Brown does very well. He has ClickFunnels reward. He has a $10 million ClickFunnels reward in the background. And then he has a Rolex Day-Date on his wrist. That's something that entrepreneurs will connect with. They'll see that and they'll be like, wow, this video is for me because this guy is like me. People watch who they are. And if you can become that person that the majority of your viewers are and demonstrate that in the thumbnail, you're going to have a lot more success. That's one of the most important things for business owners, because that essentially pre-qualifies people before they ever click on your video. The base principle for all YouTubers and business owners as well is essentially to not make the thumbnails overcomplicated. Majority of people overcomplicate the thumbnails by a ton. They'll have 6, 7 elements of just pure chaos on the thumbnail, thinking that the more the better. But realistically, you shouldn't have more than 3 elements on your thumbnail. So there's something called the 3-element rule, where you essentially want you want the outcome, and then maybe some text. That's like a perfect thumbnail. You, the outcome, text. If you do that, you're going to have a lot of success on YouTube. And you could do it in many ways. You could have you and maybe like a number here that's a low number and a high number here to show like a transformation, right? That's another way to use the 3-element rule. But you don't want ever more than 3 elements on your thumbnail. The next thing with thumbnails is color theory. So color theory is super important. On the color wheel, if you look on that, maybe we can put a little image up on screen right here. But on the color wheel, what you essentially want to do is you essentially want to use colors that are about 2/3 of the way down the color wheel. So let's say that the color wheel is like here. You want to use a color that's like here. So let's say like we have one color here on the color wheel. Those are going to contrast very, very well. And it's going to look very good if you contrast those colors. It's going to catch the eye. So those are really the base principles. And then obviously just having a good design, making it look high quality.
Yeah, I was telling you yesterday that, I worked with a consultant for a while, this ex-producer, Mr. Beast. Shout out to Drew if you ever watch this. But he told me about the 3-element principle, and I think that applies, because you mentioned yourself, dream outcome, and text, but I think you can literally take that concept of the 3 elements and apply it to literally any type of video that you make, have that as like the basis, and then, work around that concept and theory as a whole. For you, what comes first between a title and a thumbnail? Like, what are you actually thinking about first to have match with the other? Is it a case of whichever one is stronger in your mind? Like, how do you approach one versus the other?
I approach titles first.
Okay.
Because I think that a title is the hardest part to get right. I think if you have a really good title, it's easy to come up with a good thumbnail. Like, for example, we had one video that got 100,000 views, and that was the simple art of growing on YouTube. We came up with that title, and we came up with that title by actually using a book as a reference.
The subtle
art of not giving a fuck. We looked at that and we were like, okay, that's a famous book. People responded extremely well to that title. How do we take that and make it about YouTube? So we could have done, we actually have this in our ideas list. I don't think we're going to make it, but the subtle art of going viral as fuck on YouTube. But it's too close. So we changed it up a little bit and we said the simple art of going viral on YouTube. And that video got 100,000 views. But the reason why it did is because we essentially took that art concept and we were like, okay, how do we create a really good thumbnail? What if we just painted the YouTube logo in oil paint? And it's such a unique concept because no one else has done that before, and it shows the dream outcome. And so what we can do is essentially just like take the title, do something really creative on that, and that almost always works.
So yeah, another thing I wanted to ask you about is A/B testing, right? Because we had that conversation yesterday, and YouTube nowadays, there's the native test feature where you can A/B, even C test different thumbnails and essentially be able to see the percentage of the watch time that the video gets from each thumbnail, and then it makes the decision on the best one based on that. But yeah, you had a slightly different take to, I guess, what would be like intuitive when you see that. So I was wondering, what are your thoughts on A/B testing in general on YouTube?
For sure. I think it makes sense if you're a big channel. If you're a big channel or you have a backlog of a few hundred videos, then do it. If you have over 100,000 subscribers or over 100 videos that you're proud of, do it. If you don't hit those requirements, don't even worry about it. Focus on the things that are higher leverage. There's different levels of leverage on YouTube. The highest leverage is the idea, title, and thumbnail. The lowest leverage is tags, descriptions, A/B tests, all of that stuff. At a high level, it becomes important, but at a low level, don't even worry about it.
I mean, I guess that flows naturally into the next one. What are your thoughts on tags, description, etc.?
I think they don't matter at all. No, I think they literally don't matter one bit. The one thing that I would say in the beginning, most people I recommend just do like 4 or 5 tags to tell YouTube who to serve your videos to. I don't even max out my tags. I use the same description on every single video. I don't tailor it, and it works great.
So not even including different links, including different types of information about what you mentioned.
Nope. Just keep it the same. I keep it to my offer. I do a 1-line description, but there's like 1 sentence that literally just repeats the title. And then I do timestamps and 1 hashtag.
So keywords being in there, that's not something you give value to?
Not at all.
Interesting. Okay. And what metrics do you think people should be looking to, or yeah, what metrics do you think people should be looking at in terms of optimizing more for, shouldn't worry about as much, tend to skip on that actually matter more than you think? Like, what kind of metrics are you observing with your videos and your clients' videos to rate how it's going to do?
Good question. So the biggest factor in that is actually establishing something called the CTR baseline. So again, the most important thing is title and thumbnail, right? So what you want to do is after you posted around 12 videos, you want to look at your average CTR in the first 24 hours. You want to look at it in the first 7 days, and then you want to look at it in the first 30 days. So you want to basically write down all the CTRs at each of those time intervals, average them out across the entire channel, and then figure out, that'll tell you exactly what your average CTR is after 24 hours, your average CTR after 7 days, your average CTR after 30 days. And with that, you want to basically compare, in the first 24 hours, is my thumbnail hitting this CTR level? If it's not, change it. Change it and just get that thing switched off ASAP. 7 days, if your CTR baseline is below after 7 days, A/B test it. Same thing for 30 days.
Okay. And we kind of spoke about scripting, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how you'd approach it. But I mean, even in general, if you have an idea and you have a blank page in front of you, I mean, you mentioned the 9 different, I guess, like rehooks, like open hooks, and then closed loop.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, to go from a doc that is, an outline of steps you're going to take and the concept to a fully fleshed out script, are there any order you go through, any particular things you do for each video that's in common?
I think really just that process I kind of laid out, to be honest. Like, it's really just mapping out that outline, making sure everything is really good, and then just going and writing it out from there.
And once the person is actually watching a video, right? So once the packaging has worked, they've actually clicked on, what kind of things would you say impact retention the most?
Ooh, good question. So it depends. But one thing that we like to do is we like to look at something called hot buttons. And what a hot button is essentially a concept, or it's a topic that your audience responds emotionally to. So for example, politics, for one, is a really, really good one. People are very polarized on politics. And so that is like a super polarizing thing. Sexuality, that's a super polarizing topic, right? Obesity, that's a super polarizing topic. 9 to 5 is kind of a polarizing topic. College is a good one. Dropping out, all of that. You want to think about, what are those topics for your industry? For example, let's do for example, in the dropshipping niche, stealing people's ads is a topic that gets people emotional, kind of. Getting your first sale is one that gets people emotional. So like think about what things get people emotional, do more of that and less of just like everything else. What you're going to want to look for in your actual data is you're going to want to essentially look at your retention graph and look if there's any 3% jumps or more, or if there's any 3% drops or more. If you see a 3% drop, go ahead and write down what that is that happened there, and then do less of that thing. And if you do that for every single video and you write down the highs as well, like what did you do here that you should do more of, eventually you'll find some commonalities. And if you're constantly doing this over the span of 100 videos, you're going to increase your retention by probably 5-10%.
Yeah, I think that makes sense, right? Because every time it drops by that 3%, that's people leaving the video because you've done something right there. And if you find commonalities between the different videos and where they're dropping, or even within the same video, you can make chance of that. But wouldn't you say, and again, this is more out of just like what I've seen myself, but if there's a spike, at least in my experience, it tends to correlate with a chapter of the video or something, it's either that someone's skipped to it or someone's replayed that moment, right? So how do you determine like if that's that's a dub, that's something I should repeat type thing?
It's one of those things that you want to look at it over time. So I don't write down something and then instantly change it. I usually write it down and leave it. And then I just continuously write it down for every single video and look back after a month or so and be like, okay, on these last 4 videos, there was a commonality between these things, right? Maybe 3 out of 4 of the videos shared this retention spike. Let's do more of that. Because you're right, a lot of it is repeating, or a lot of it is like people will rewind to get like an asset or something like that. But the thing is that that's great feedback too. You could just give out more assets that'll increase your retention. It's like, yeah, sometimes it doesn't help at all. Sometimes it helps a ton.
For sure. And, when it comes to actual retention, obviously the place where most of the losing of audience is going to be is within that first, 30 to 60 seconds, even 10 to 30 seconds, with the actual introduction. So with that being said, how would you approach making introductions that actually retain people?
Good question. So I use a four-part intro framework, and this framework is very simple. The first thing that you want to do is simply just repeat your title. So the first line should always be you repeating your title. So let's say you have how to become a millionaire in 10 minutes. The first line should just be something like, I'm going to show you how to become a millionaire in 10 minutes. Then the second part of that first line should be credibility. Just like I have going from 0 to $1 million in the last year. That should be like the second half of that line. The second section in the actual intro is opening a loop. So raising that question in the viewer's mind. And there's a simple strategy that I use to make my first $1 million in the span of 12 months that you can just copy. So now people are wondering, what is that strategy? What is that strategy that he's going to tell me that I can copy? Then in the third line, what you're going to want to do is start to set expectations. So in this video, I'm going to show you X, Y, and Z thing that will get you to this dream outcome fast. That will tell them exactly what they're going to get in that video, and it will tell them exactly what to expect. Another thing in that third line that you can do, especially if you have a more boring video, let's say you're using like a coaching call, Zoom call, Google Doc, slideshow, Miro board, whatever, you can tell them, be like, I'm about to break down in depth on a Miro board, and we're going to cover X, Y, and Z that will get you X result. And then you could throw in like a little cheeky line where it's like, and if you can't even pay attention to a Miro board for 5 minutes, then you're probably not going to make it anyway. So you'd say something like that just to pre-frame them. But line 4 is just going to be basically, why is your perspective unique? So you could say like, so many gurus are telling you how to get rich, but I'm going to show you how I actually did it in a way that 99% of people haven't. So something like that. Or another way to do that is you could say your mission statement. So for example, my mission statement is I'm on a mission to take 1,000 YouTubers to over 100,000 subscribers, right? And that separates me from every other person talking about YouTube.
Amazing. And in terms of shorts, right? Relatively, I won't say it's relatively new because now it's been a while, but I feel like people still haven't really pieced together how to make the best use of it. Even recently, I don't know if you saw, they even changed like the way that they count shorts on YouTube. So there's like a whole different, like you can't even compare a short nowadays to a short at the start of the year. Interesting. What approach do you recommend, especially business owners, to take when it comes to shorts, right? Because for context, I had a channel that still have a channel that we were doing long form and those were going great, but a lot of people were coming in through the short form, which was really popping. And then a lot of those people wouldn't click on the long form because it was something completely different to what they were being served with short form.
Yes.
So is that like the big kind of warning label that comes with short form?
Yeah. So how you want to separate short form is you want to either do, you should almost never post on your main channel a short a day. It's so bad for the channel because if one of those blows up, it's actually one of the worst things that can happen, because then you're building a huge audience of people who aren't interested in your videos, which is just gonna kill your channel because YouTube's gonna see that you post a video and none of your subscribers watch it. That's a bad thing to have happen. So what you want to do instead is you want to max post 2 shorts for every 1 long form video you do, linking back to that long form video ideally, or you just create a separate shorts channel. That's the second option. That's what I would recommend most people do. If they're going to do shorts, just post it on a separate channel. You can still link back to your main video on that separate channel. It's extremely effective. It works. Then the long form viewers can separate themselves from the short form viewers. It's a lot better. You still get all the benefits from it. The only caveat is I would actually post short form every single day on Instagram and TikTok, driving people back to your long form content, because then they have to make the active choice to go and seek out your long form content.
For sure. And I mean, the last episode we were speaking about the book you wrote about YouTube. I mean, if you just want to very briefly explain like what the book was about.
Sure. So essentially it's a book titled YouTube Growth Made Simple, and it's an entire roadmap how to go from 0 to 100,000 subscribers this year. So in that book, we essentially break down every single piece of YouTube that you need to learn in order to get yourself from 0 to 100,000 subscribers, because that's the point where if you're a business owner and you have 100,000 subscribers, you're going to be making a lot of money. And if you're not a business owner and you have 100,000 subscribers, you're still going to be making a lot of money. It's very hard not to make money when you're at 100,000 subscribers. So we basically teach you all of the skill sets to get you there as fast as possible, because most people will take 3, 4, 5 years to hit that first 100,000 subscriber mark. This book will show you how to get there in a year, in 12 months. It basically teaches you all of the fundamental skill sets. So it teaches you ideation, it teaches you strategy, titles, thumbnails, scripting, editing, analytics, every single thing that you need to learn in order to grow and monetize your channel at the highest level.
Beautiful. And if someone were to optimize for speed of getting there as fast as possible, what would you say are the key 3 to 5 things that they should focus on?
So what you have to do is be new or better, right? Going back to that core principle. So if you want to get to 100,000 subscribers as fast as possible, like for example, with one of our clients, Joel Kaplan, we got there in literally 6 months. We went from a few thousand subscribers that he had built up over 3 years. It was literally 5,000 subscribers when I first came on. And we grew him to 100,000 within his first 6 months. And the way that we did that is, for one, by being better than everyone else in the industry, by giving away what is called a free course. So it was essentially a 12-hour completely free course that taught people how to grow a marketing agency. And with that, it was so effective because no one else at the time had put out a free course. So we were essentially being new. We bring something new to the market, and we bring something better than everybody else, because at the time, everybody else was selling a paid course. So we were new and we were better, and that skyrocketed our channel. So what you need to think about is look at everything on the market in your niche right now. Maybe there's a 4-hour free course. Maybe there's a 6-hour free course. No one's probably done a 12-hour one. You could be the first. No one's probably done one with AI that they don't have to do any of the work on. That could be one. Nobody's giving away a free AI tool that people can use to get the result that you want. How can you bring something new to the market, or just bring so much more value over to the market than everyone else? That's how you blow up fast.
On AI specifically, how do you use AI especially within the scripting process for your videos?
For sure. So I think right now, we're filming this in July. Yeah, we're filming this in July of 2025. AI is like not quite there yet with the ideation and the thumbnails. You can do it. Same thing with like avatars, AI avatars, not quite there yet. I think it's getting close. However, for scripting, it's the one part of YouTube that I think can be automated by AI. And I think it saves you a ton of time. Like for all of our clients, we basically give them access to an AI scripting bot, which is trained off of Poppy AI, which anybody can go purchase. Like you guys can go buy a Poppy AI, and it's extremely good. Like it's essentially can write you like a whole YouTube script in like 10 minutes, which is insane. Because normally it takes like 3-4 hours to write a YouTube script.
Yeah.
And now we have pretty much all of our clients get a base off of Poppy and then just edit it from there, and it saves a ton of time.
Amazing. So, I mean, to start pivoting into the different roles within YouTube, right? Because in the end of the day, YouTube is a whole industry, right? And, you see the videos coming out, but the whole process that they go through to actually come out the way that they do is a lot. And especially now that you're in a position where you hire people to work on videos.
Yeah.
It's something I wanted to ask you a bit about the different roles. So, I mean, first off, I know you have a YouTube offer. So, I mean, feel free to plug what you do and how people can find you.
Sure. Yeah, for sure. So basically, if you are a coach, consultant, agency owner, or info product business owner, we can essentially help you grow your channel to 100,000 subscribers or $100,000 a month, depending on your goal, whether you want to be rich and stay anonymous or you want to build one of the biggest names in your industry. We essentially help people do that. And we have a done for you offer that essentially just makes it so all you have to do is show up and record. So I won't go too far in depth on that, but if you would like to learn more, you can just reach out to me at Linden Chasteen on Instagram. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
For sure. I'll leave notes in the description because I do stat pad descriptions.
It's cool.
But, now that you do have this done for you offer and everything else you do, what are like the different roles that people play within your team? Like, what would you say are, like the different roles within what it takes to get a YouTube video out?
So how my team is structured, we have 2 editors because we have 2 channels. One editor shouldn't work on 2 channels at once. One editor for one channel. So we have 2 editors, 2 full-time editors, one for our main channel, one for our second channel. And then we also have a thumbnail designer that we have full-time. Realistically, if you're a solo creator, you don't need to have a thumbnail designer full-time. We have him to use for our channel and for all of our clients. But that's pretty much it. Like that, you don't need a big team for content. Obviously, if you run like a 7-8 figure business, you might need to hire someone like a creative director, and obviously a strategist if you want to grow fast. But for majority of people, especially if you're kind of growing this yourself, having an editor take care of the editing is the 80-20. Having a thumbnail designer to make sure that the thumbnail is the best it possibly can be is a no-brainer. Those are the 2 hires that I think you can build a 100,000 subscriber channel very fast.
How do you go about approaching hiring talent for your companies or even to plug for your clients?
For sure. So basically how it works is we essentially look on Twitter. So Twitter is the best hiring platform for YouTube because that's essentially where all the editors hang out. It's where all the thumbnail designers hang out. There's a huge community of thumbnail designers, editors on Twitter. So we essentially just go through, look up like thumbnail designer on the search, find someone who's good, go through their following, DM a bunch of people. That's the best strategy to do it. There's other websites like ytjobs.co. That's a very, very good website to hire from. I've hired from there before. But you don't want to be going on Upwork and Fiverr. Like it's just not it. If you want to actually build a real channel, it's not good enough.
For sure. And even, based on that, there's different kind of price points, right? There will be editors that charge $500 for an edit. There will be editors that charge $600 for the same edit. Thumbnail designers, $20 a pop. Other thumbnail designers, $300 a pop.
Yeah.
What would you say is the biggest difference between, let's start with thumbnail. So like a $20 thumbnail and a $300 thumbnail.
The difference between 20 and 300 is huge. So the thing about thumbnails is like, I've noticed that the amount that you spend on a thumbnail directly correlates to the amount of traffic that you get. And so my philosophy actually is to try to spend as much as you can on a thumbnail. I purposely, when I first started my YouTube channel, when I had 0 subscribers, the way that we were able to blow up so fast is because I paid someone $300 for a thumbnail on every single video. And I just dropped an extra 1.2K a month for the first like 8 videos. And then I took it in-house, right? So now obviously because I have a full-time thumbnail designer, I'm able to get them cheaper. But I would recommend if you're trying to build a serious brand, the number one place to spend money is on a thumbnail. And I know it may seem like, why am I spending $300 on a thumbnail? But I guarantee you, if you're trying to blow up fast, that's the biggest lever you can pull.
And what about editing, right? So like, I mean, I said 50 and 600, but you know, no need to use those specific numbers, but a cheap editor versus an expensive editor, like how worth it is it?
It just depends on your style of content, to be honest. Like, if you're one of the people who's making more raw content, you can get away with $50 an edit and have it be a very high quality video. For a lot of our clients, what we'll do is we'll actually just develop like video styles that are more slideshow based, Miro based, where they can get down that editing cost in the beginning. And for a lot of, if you're going more B2B on YouTube and you're going more business to business, then the more simple editing works better. They respond to that better. Versus if you're going more like with a BizOp offer, or you're just going straight to the masses, highly edited content performs exponentially better. That case, I would recommend minimum $400, ideally $800. Now I spend more, which is not good, but I used to spend, when I first started the channel, about $800 per video edit.
$800 for one video. Okay. Because yeah, with editing, you know, within, and I know you're an editor, so you know editing, so you'll have the context for this, but I've heard a lot of editors speak about retention editing. I'm a retention editor, that's why I charge more. What does that actually mean?
Yeah, for sure. So retention editing is just means that they know how to keep people engaged, which is actually a very valuable skill set. You want someone who is a good retention editor. Anyone can say they are, but you want somebody who actually is. The key principles to that is just showing, not telling. If you talk about, oh, I made X $1,000 last month, you don't want someone to have text on the screen that says, I made X $1,000 last month. That doesn't show anything. You want them to show a B-roll shot of you opening your Shopify balance or your Stripe balance, or just putting a screenshot of it up. That's simple. I would much rather have an edit that has no animations, nothing at all, and just simply has images that show what I'm talking about than a bunch of crazy text animations.
Yeah, man, because I think the editing side is one side to it, but the other one that I see is writing and scripting, right? And especially over the last few months, I've become familiar with this concept of ghostwriting. And actually, like, there being people that come in for other people and actually write their scripts for them.
Yep.
So, I mean, firstly, what do you think of that as a concept?
I think if you have the budget for it, it's very worth it. If you can essentially just have a professional scriptwriter, huge plug for my boy, Brian Ng. Brian's one of the best scriptwriters on YouTube. Check him out if you do want scripts, but he like literally just goes into businesses. He charges, I think, $1,000 a script, and he'll literally just write your scripts for you. And they're phenomenal. They do very, very well. And it's extremely good copywriting, and he's great at what he does. And the thing is that most people, like, for most people, that's not in their budget, but for the people who it is, it's worth it.
What about for the people who are considering doing that for themselves, like becoming a ghostwriter type thing?
Sure, yeah, that works too. Like you can make good money. I wouldn't start off charging what Brian charges. I would start off like charging way less and just build up your portfolio, build up some really big creators that you've worked with, and then up your prices, right? Like, as long as you're a good copywriter, you have to know good YouTube copy, which is a skill that you develop over time. But I mean, I've charged $2,000 for a single script before. Like, you can make good money off of scripting.
How would you say you can get good at YouTube copy as opposed to like sales copy in particular?
A lot of it overlaps. So a lot of it overlaps, but you have to understand how YouTube videos flow. And there's tons of good resources. The real answer is you have to watch a lot of YouTube trainings. Like, Brian has some great resources as well. So I would recommend checking that out. Like, go through some script writing guides, learn storytelling, incorporate that into traditional direct response copy, and you're going to be a great copywriter.
And in terms of consulting for YouTube, again, this is not in the angle of like, oh, I want a consultant. It's more like to become a consultant. Sure. Do you think you need to have experience with your own content in order to justify being able to consult other people on their content?
100%. Yeah, if you haven't grown channels yourself, then you can't consult people. You can, but it's just like, you shouldn't.
But the growth doesn't have to be your own channel then, from what I'm understanding. You can, for example, what you did for Joel, right? Went in, worked with him, he was the case study, and then you used that rather than using your own channel as the case study, if that makes sense.
You can do that. Yeah. Like it works. Like that's what I did in the start. And then I grew my own channel to prove that I could grow my own channel, which was very smart. There's only 3 YouTube strategists in the entire space that have done that, which is, like me, Patty, and Ed from Film Booth. And so like, those are the only 3 people who have really grown their channels like big. And externally outside of that, there are so many strategists that purely acquire clients based off of channels that they have created, or they have, that channels that they have grown. A lot of them in the education space. Some of my good friends, Leroy, Vexian, those guys are absolute savages, some of the best in the world at YouTube, but they don't really have their own channels, right? Maybe like some very niche ones that they just talk about advanced YouTube stuff on, but those guys are extremely talented, and they make good money doing what they love, and they don't grow their own channel.
Okay. I mean, if we pivot now into a bit more info specific stuff, right? So I know you've spoken to and worked with a lot of coaches and consultants. What traits would you say that the ones who are most successful, particularly in their experience with working with you, right, judging success by that metric, what would you say are the traits that they have in common?
I think one of them is on-camera presence. On-camera presence, and then the ability to... On-camera presence is probably the biggest one. Like, that's really what separates the people who really make it versus the people who don't, is just like aura. Like, they have to have some sort of aura. So it's like, you have to be a character, not a fake character, but even if you yourself, like, for example, Joel's business partner, Sergio, he's like this huge jack guy, but he's like just naturally jack. Like, he's just like, looks like a savage, like a gorilla, bro. Like, that man is like just peak physical. And like, it's so easy to make him go viral just because he has a viral physique and he knows how to talk. Like, his emotional intelligence is through the roof. So he can really connect with viewers on camera. And that's like such a huge thing. And you can develop that, by the way. It's a skill. I wasn't like that when I first started. I've gotten a good amount better. But you want to have good on-camera presence. I think that's the main thing. Other than that, like, just the ability to listen to someone who's done it before. Like, if I tell you make a video and then you go make a different video and it doesn't work, then like, what can you do? So you got to make sure that you got to be someone who has trust in the direction.
And on the flip side, what would you say are the similarities between those who try and never really manage to succeed with YouTube for their info product?
I would say it's the expectation that everything happens fast. So YouTube is a long game. Like, it can take a year to get your first 10,000 subscribers, and people have to be okay with that. YouTube is a forever game. It's not like, oh, in 3 months, I'm going to be making 100 grand a month. That can happen. We have clients all the time who that happens, right? Like, for example, we had a client, Daryl, who literally on his first ever video got 145,000 views. First ever video he's posted. And he made like 30K off that video, right? And that's like instant success. But that's not the norm. That happens occasionally. But what majority of the time, how YouTube works is this a long game. You got to play it like a forever game. It's a game that you play for 5-10 years and you constantly put out content. You make that part of your routine. Those are the people who have the most success. But if you want just fast results in like 2-3 months, it's just not going to happen. Like, you shouldn't go into YouTube with the expectation that it's going to save your business. It's like it's an exponential curve, and the people who really succeed are the people who build that foundation and know that it's going to take time, and they are the ones who explode.
Well put. And if you were to tell someone that wanted to get started, posting content to promote their info, generic package, like, general strategy kind of advice, how would you suggest that they approach content in general?
Great question. So how I like to approach it, the first video that I would recommend anybody in info make is a VSL video. Make a sales letter that you can essentially post that sells people into your info product. Make that video, make it YouTube friendly. I have videos on my channel explaining how to do this, but literally it's very simple. You start off with a call out, you call out the person, go into the problem state, go into the solution state, connect your product to that solution, and then you pitch. Testimonials and pitch. That's one of the most basic videos that you can do to start making a lot of money from your channel. And then what you're going to want to do is going to make a mix of top of funnel, middle of funnel, and bottom of funnel content to support that VSL video. Top of funnel is going to be content that targets the broadest portion of your prospects. So let's say with dropshipping, how to make $10,000 a month dropshipping. That's a broad video. The next is a type 2 content, which is middle of funnel, which is more niche. That's like specific problems that that person may encounter. How to build a Shopify store, how to find a Shopify product, how to find a dropshipping product. That is specific middle of funnel content. And then on the bottom of funnel, you have case studies. So that could be like, how he made $10,000 a month with dropshipping in 30 days, right? All of those 3 pieces of content, you want to do 33% on each. And then you drive all of those pieces of content back to that conversion video where it keeps getting views forever, and it keeps getting more and more views exponentially the more videos you post, because those videos keep getting views forever. They all drive back to that one video and it just explodes. That's how Iman Gaji made $20 million from a single YouTube video. That's how, for example, Joel made $3 million from a single YouTube video. That's how I've made over $500,000 now from a single YouTube video. That's the game for info.
Yeah, so you mentioned Iman start of this year, at least first when I saw him mention the concept of the Flywheel VSL, right? I mean, you've kind of explained it, but to dumb it down, like what is a Flywheel VSL and why are they so effective?
Yeah, I mean, it's essentially, like I said, that conversion video. And then because all the content that you post, every single video, those videos, some of them will die off, but majority of them get views forever if you build them the right way. If you drive back to that conversion video in each of those other videos, then that video constantly gets more and more views regardless of the YouTube algorithm, because you constantly are building more and more traffic sources that feed back into it. And then it just gets more and more views, which means you make more and more money.
For sure. And, I've also seen people, including yourself, dropping hours long, free course kind of content, right? So A, what's the logic behind that? And B, is the goal for people to actually watch through the whole thing?
Yeah, so ideally they do. The best free courses are ones that people actually consume. Because yes, you could put together like a bad free course and just like compile all your old content together. But the thing is, it's going to have like 6 to 8 minutes of average watch time. No one's going to watch it. YouTube cares about average watch time. To whereas one that's actually fully produced, really well thought out, is going to have closer to 30 to 40 minutes of watch time, which is huge. That's a lot of watch time. That's like unheard of. And YouTube is going to instantly push that video out to so many people. And the key there is you can treat that free course like a Flywheel VSL, because it essentially, especially if you want to build a brand that doesn't feel quite as salesy, you can build that free course, which just builds a ton of free value, have a CTA to your offer about once every hour, and drive people back to your offer page. That also converts like crazy.
Okay. And if someone already has like 1 to 3K subs, what would you say is the easiest like thing or set of things they can do to get to 10 as soon as possible?
To get to 10K?
Yeah.
Make broader videos. Most people are just making, especially business owners, are just making extremely hyper-targeted content, which, by the way, growing to 10K subs is not always the goal. Like I said, like we have multiple clients who have under 10,000 subs who make over $100,000 a month from their channels. So you have to first define the goal. Do you want to get to 10,000 subs, or do you want to just focus on making money? Once you've decided that, do you want to build a big personal brand? If the answer is yes, then you simply need to make broader content. It simply comes down to total addressable market and then capturing more of that market. So you can build a hyper niche personal brand to 10,000 subs, but it's going to take a long, long time.
So in terms of broad versus niche, you're saying, yeah. So how would you pick, right? Let's say you're a info product offer owner. you're looking to get the word out there, how would you pick between going more broad or going more niche?
It really depends on your actual offer. Let's say that you have a very high ticket B2B offer. Um, with that kind of offer, you're probably going to want to go more niche because, like, realistically, yes, you could build a gigantic personal brand and then monetize it later purely off the personal brand that you realize that, like, people know you from that, so it becomes easier to sell people. Or you could just make content that directly targets the people who are trying to buy from you. And it just depends if you want money in 2 years or you want money now. So it's really just a personal goal thing. It's also an offer thing. If you have a biz op offer, go broad. 100%. There's no reason to go niche. If you have a B2B offer that's more sophisticated, I would probably recommend for most people go niche. Like, if your goal is to make money, if you want to build a big personal brand, then just detach the money from it and go big. But if you're trying to just make money, go niche if you're like high ticket B2B.
And how would you say someone can actually create a new lane for themselves rather than just being another person that does XYZ, another person in SMMA, another person in dropshipping, right? Because you spoke about in the last episode this blue ocean strategy kind of concept and wanting to differentiate yourself. But how would you say practically someone can actually go about creating that blue ocean for themselves?
Good question. So the easiest way to do it is something that I like to call X but X. So X but X is essentially taking your niche. So the first X would be, let's say, business, right? So you have business but X. So you're adding a twist onto business, and you try to find a twist that nobody is talking about, right? So, for example, one of our clients, he's a fitness coach, right? And so basically he's like productivity, fitness, like helping entrepreneurs with their blood work. What he did is he essentially said, like, okay, productivity, testosterone, like biohacking essentially, but specifically for libido. And that angle has been crushing. That's the guy who got 140,000 views on his first video, right? And he's just hit 4,000 subscribers. He's crushing it. And so that's one, like, that's an example of that. Another one, for example, would be, I think his name's Quasi Joe here. Right? Do you know him?
Assume I do.
Okay. So Quasi Joe here, he's like, he did basically business, but based off of history. So he basically breaks down business from a historical lens and making money from a historical lens. So he's like the like ancient Egyptian principle to make millions in your 20s, stuff like that. And that's like such a unique angle that nobody else has, and that's his unique X but X. Or for example, Rian Doris, who Rian Doris essentially talked about flow state. He talked about productivity, how to get in flow and get more work done. That's a super, super like competitive niche. But what he did is he built an X but X, and he said productivity, but based off of science, based off of real data. And what he did is he just took a bunch of clinical studies, he took a bunch of like real scientific rules and data, and then presented that in that productivity lens. And he grew from 0 to 400,000 subscribers in a year.
Yeah. Okay. That X by X concept is
X but X, yeah.
Oh, that's a cool one for sure. I've also heard you say you're a business owner, not an influencer.
Mhm.
So when it comes to that specifically, and again, drawing back to info, do views actually matter for selling info offers?
Yeah, so it depends on your offer. If you have a more high ticket B2B, it's better to get the right views. The goal should always be the most amount of the right views as possible. So yes, more views does equal more money if it's the right views. Like, let's say you're getting 10,000 views on a high ticket B2B service. You're going to make so much money versus 100 views. You still might close a client or two. You know, it really just depends on what level you're going to want to do, but you have to try to make your content as broad within your market as you possibly can on your top of funnel content, because that will capture the largest amount of eyeballs that are your specific prospect that can buy from you. Versus on a biz op offer, you should try to capture the largest amount of people who are interested in making money online, which is millions of people, meaning you should go for millions of views. And there's multiple people who have done that. Jordan Bound, Nathan Nazareth, who have gotten millions and millions of views on BizOp dropshipping videos, and they've made millions of dollars from it.
So, I mean, I know you're someone who focuses a lot on organic content, naturally, the whole conversation about YouTube, but what do you think of ads and running ads, especially within the context of info products?
I think ads are a phenomenal way to sell info products. What I think works the best is, even for business offers, but for all offers, if you're currently acquiring like business through paid ads, if you add in YouTube, it's one of the most powerful things that you can do right now. Because right now, as if you're in info, like we're in a huge trust recession, ad costs are skyrocketing, they're at an all-time high. And the way to get out of that and the way to lower your ad costs, build more trust, have higher closing rates, have better clients coming in is simply by adding more trust, and adding organic is the best way to build trust. Because of that rule, having 7 hours of content before somebody buys, that study that Google did, if you can hit that 7 hours, it becomes so much easier than if you're just running paid ads where people are going from a 60-second ad to a 10-minute VSL and then booking a call. Maybe you have a pre-call video in there, but they're like under an hour of time consumed, right? And even if you're using some more advanced ad strategies where you're hammering them with all this short form content that addresses all their concerns, it still doesn't come close to the amount of trust that you can build with someone and the relationship that you can build with them spending hours and hours with you on YouTube. So I think for any info business, ads make a ton of sense, whether that's simply just implementing a simple nurturing system. Like we work with a lot of agency owners who have, multi 7-figure agencies. And all we do is just make them VSL video, story video, testimonial reel, add a lot of testimonials. And we basically build out like an end-to-end nurturing system for their business, which essentially allows them to just have way higher trust, have prospects not use that sales call as an education session, and basically show up credit card ready, ready to buy.
I love that. And, even based on lead quality there that we're speaking about, if you're a coach and you're putting out content and the leads that are coming in aren't great quality, how would you go about addressing that?
For sure. So if you're not currently getting great quality, you need to ask yourself a question. If I scale back and I really target the messaging in, am I going to get less overall qualified people? So this is what I was talking about with you last night is I would much rather get more leads and just filter harder and have overall more qualified people than get less leads that are more qualified and not have to filter as hard. Like with Joel, for example, we were booking over 100 calls every single day. Majority of those were not qualified. We just cancel a lot of the calls and still take 10, 20 sales calls every single day and make, at one point we made like $100,000 in a single day, right? Which is a lot of money. Yeah. And so it's like, I would much rather get way more leads than just have better leads.
For sure. And I mean, you mentioned Joel there, but out of all the guys you've worked with, what would you say have been like the biggest lessons you've learned as to the best way to actually set up an info offer itself?
I would say a mix of paid ads and YouTube. I think the best scenario that you can have is you have YouTube as your main acquisition source, where you're doing $400,000 or $500,000 a month through YouTube. And then what you do is you basically just have paid ads as a supplement to that. So you can essentially retarget all the YouTube viewers on Instagram with different retargeting ads to instill different beliefs in them, right? Instill that they need a mentor, learn a little bit more about your program. Retargeting ads, I think, are the perfect mechanism to do this. So for example, with Joel, it's like we were closing $500,000 a month through just pure organic content. And then we spent like 10K on ads and closing an extra 100 grand a month. It's like, so we were doing 600,000 a month in total. That's like such a good setup because your margins are so high. Like he was taking over a home over $400,000 a month in profit, which is like, there's no other info business that like can really do that if they're relying purely on paid ads, just because the ad costs are so high, especially if you have a big team.
Amazing, man. I mean, whole lot of value dropped, gone on for well over an hour plus another hour on your story.
Yep.
So super grateful for having you on here.
Thanks for having me.
3 questions before we go. If you had to go back to the version of yourself that started YouTube and you could only give them a maximum of 3 pieces of advice on how to grow an audience, what would those be?
Learn titles and thumbnails, learn how to write good copy, and learn what makes an engaging edit.
With those 3, you can grow an audience.
Yes.
If you had to speak to someone looking to get into the YouTube space without necessarily being a creator themselves, what advice would you give them?
I would start building up a specific skill set. I wouldn't try to do broad YouTube. I would try to do something like editing, script writing, thumbnails, even titles. Something like that would be really good.
And if you had to approach building up that skill set, how would you approach actually like starting that journey of building it up?
Watch a lot of YouTube videos and then start implementing it on your own.
Beautiful. Yeah, I guess how can people find out more about what you do, who you are, anything specific?
For sure. So the best way to reach me, just hit me up on Instagram. I'm very active on there. So just at Linden Chasteen. Feel free to shoot me a DM if you'd like some help. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Beautiful, bro. I'll leave links in the description. And yeah, bro, huge pleasure again.
Pleasure.
Thank you for the hospitality. Thank you for the experience, and more than anything, thank you for the friendship.
Of course, man. Yeah,
Excited
thanks for having me on.
to see where we'll take it. But yeah, if you want to learn more about Linden and his story to how he's gotten to where he is, you can check out the full episode I did with him right here. And if you want to hear about someone else speaking about their own content journey, you can hear about that